Have you ever detoxed your body? Have you ever even thought about being a vegan or learning which foods can maybe help you heal? What if you could eat all the chocolate you wanted? So, today we have a very exciting, a fun, and a bit of a controversial episode today, folks. Due to the very sensitive nature of YouTube sensibilities and the controversial nature of our conversation, part two of this will be exclusively on our Rumble. But part one will be here for you. So you don't want to miss this, episode 5 of Spiritual Technologies Podcast.
Welcome to the Spiritual Technologies Podcast with Travis Wright, where mindfulness intersects with the cutting edge of tech. Dive into conversations with leading experts that illuminate the path to a higher self, blending spiritual insights with technological advancements. Join us in this journey of discovery and transformation.
Welcome to the podcast for the conscious, curious, and the not so woo-woo, but a little woo. So as always, make sure to subscribe and like and comment all the things. And a big thanks to the 25,000 plus subscribers on our YouTube already. Thank you so much for that. We love that. And I am rocking red today for the root color of the spectrum. And we're going to get to the root cause of many illnesses today with our next guest. And you might know this guy. You've probably seen him. You might have seen his curly hair somewhere or his beautiful face somewhere or see, you just typed in the word avocado and he popped up. He owns SEO on the word avocado. It looks like David Avocado Wolfe. He is a celebrated health and wellness expert. He's known for his passion for raw foods, superfoods, natural living. He went to school for mechanical engineering and environmental engineering, I believe. And he founded Sun Food Nutrition, Sacred Chocolate. I think he was on the NutriBullet commercials back in the day. He's done, 10 plus books. You can go to his YouTube and check out all of those. He is an engaging speaker. I recently saw him at his event, and wow, he is inspiring his audiences worldwide with his charismatic presentations on health and longevity. He's also an epic drummer, and he's a bit of a comedian, and he is also a certified meme master. So join us right now as we're going to introduce Mr. Avocado, and this is going to be the best podcast ever. David.
It's on, right on. How are you? How you doing, Travis? Good to see you.
Hey, it's great to see you as well. So thanks again for the intro to the invite to the Health and Rejuvenation Conference there in March in Laguna Beach. It's really awesome to see you with your tribe and just see how much love they got for you, brother.
It was fantastic. It was like the best event we'd done in about 10 years. We used to do 2 of those a year back in the heyday. And it was a lot of work. And we built a great community and a lot of great volunteers, and a lot of people would come to multiple events each year. And then, as how things happen, and I needed to get off the road. And in 2020, I actually got to stay home for the whole year, which is totally unique. I never had stayed home ever. I traveled the world actually for 26 straight years. I wasn't in one place for more than 4 weeks. So it was a good change, but now I'm kind of get back on the road and I'm getting back into it. So good times ahead.
Yeah. Well, that was really exciting to see that and to see your tribe and to meet and to have conversations with so many interesting people. I was like, wow, like his tribe, it seems like my tribe of people too. Like these are cool, interesting people. We kind of have similar beliefs when it comes to the ways of the world and who runs things. And a lot of great people there. And so we'll have some conversations about that a little bit. But I want to get to the beginning, right? So your journey into superfoods and optimal nutrition, you've been doing this for decades, right? But let's go back to the young David Wolfe, right? I think you said you were originally from New Jersey, then you moved to San Diego. And so I'm curious about that. But what initially sparked your passion for this field and, how your understanding has evolved over the years with this nutrition stuff?
Well, I was born on the East Coast. I'm from Seaside Heights, New Jersey. And so some of you from the Jersey Shore know that location. My parents were the doctors there. So I'm the son of 2 medical doctors. And so I got off to a real interesting start to my life because I was able to see that profession from behind the scenes, what worked and what didn't work. We can get into that. Maybe we'll do that on the show that's not going to be on this platform. But anyway, in the mid 70s, my parents started coming to visit my uncle in San Diego. And eventually we went there and started planting trees on my uncle's farm that he got in East San Diego, which, by the way, today is a war zone. Today's an absolute war zone. Crushes my heart to see what's happened there because the border is just out of control. He's right on the border. I grew up on the border. On that farm. And that's where I first started growing avocados, planted my first avocado tree in 1978. Some of those cedars that we planted in 1978 today they're like this. And I'm talking about those cedars, those Greek ones that go straight up, that kind of cedar. And they're like rocks. They're like part of the landscape. It's really incredible in one lifetime what you can do to reforest the earth and what you can do with the trees, just getting new trees back in. So we did great things on that farm. I'm bummed what's happening there. I'm going to be going back there and I'm going to do a full report from what's happening there at the border. My uncle tells me crazy stories every time I see him. And then I grew up there, and then I moved a little bit east or west of San Diego, more closer to the beaches. Grew up as a San Diego surfer. And so it was in that culture that I got into organic foods and superfoods and eventually raw foods. And then I realized, whoa, I could be like the next like Paul Bragg or the next Arnold Ehret or someone in that, or Arnold and with Dr. Ann Wigmore, something like that. And that's what I went for early when I was 23. So I've been doing this 30 years.
It's amazing. And so, I think everybody wants to know this. You're nicknamed Avocado. Is that just because you just really love guacamole? You went to San Diego and you tasted some guacamole or something, and you were like, "Oh my God, this is the best guacamole ever." So was it because you loved for eating them, or for planting them, or what?
Well, it's both, of course. I'm an avocado breeder. I've been an avocado breeder all my life since 1978. So back then we used to do grafting, and one of the fun things we did as kids was to let's graft 5 different types of citrus onto one tree, that kind of fun stuff. And we did that with avocados. I grafted many different Fuerte avocados, bacon avocados, Hass avocados, etc., Zutanos, all kinds of interesting things. And then when as I got older, I was like, I'm moving this operation to Hawaii because I want to get really into growing the big Guatemalan highland monster avocados that are as big as your head. And that's what I do today.
Nice. I lived in Puerto Rico for 3 years, and the avocados there are huge, but they don't taste delicious. Like, it's almost like if you could do the Hass avocado and then merge it with that big avocado that they have in Puerto Rico, those would be spectacular, but they're full of so much water, right? So it's like the guacamole you make from a Puerto Rican avocado is not so great. So maybe what's the trick to that? I mean, so you were grafting them together and creating your own super hybrid avocados?
Well, that's what I did when I was a kid. Now I breed true to seed. I want the seed. If you get the seed from the avocado and you plant it, you get the same avocado from that tree as the one you ate.
Really?
And that's really cool. Now, the one you want, I know this, and one day you'll be at my farm in Hawaii and you'll have it and you'll be like, yep, this is what I wanted all along. You want those Highland Guatemalan, big, round, globe-shaped, small seed, huge amounts of fat, epic flavor on trees that aren't too big and aren't too intrusive. But, the tree itself, like I've been breeding these trees for years, the tree itself will be half leaves and half fruit. That's like how abundant they are. It's really my masterpiece, actually. 40 years at it, 42 years now. It's a masterpiece. And that tree, you plant that seed, you will get that exact tree, not too big, not too intrusive, lots of giant fruits and very small amount of leaves. It's perfect.
Yeah. You can literally live on avocado, essentially. I mean, for the most part, it would seem it's such a nutrient dense food. What's your favorite ways to eat avocado? Let's maybe go there.
Oh, I used to, back in the early days, I would just eat the avocado straight like an apple. And everybody, I was in an entrepreneur group there in San Diego, and people would be like, dude, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so one day they said, why don't you go up there and do the talk at the meeting? And I was like, okay. And tell us what you're doing. Like, what's this avocado thing, this diet you're on? That was my first live presentation. And that was 30 years ago in front of 100 people. That was my first talk. And then I really liked it. So I started hitting the road, doing talks on nutrition, different foods, superfoods, avocados, olives, everything. And about 3,000 events later, I arrived here. So that's my favorite thing. That's my guacamole, is being on the road and doing events and meeting people.
3,000 events, dude. I've done like 150 keynotes worldwide, and I was like, dude, I need to relax. David Avocado's over here, 3,000. I feel like a slacker now. You really have hurt my feelings.
It was crazy. I mean, there was the years I'd do 120 events, 130 events. I think the most events I ever did in a year was 139 events in 1 year.
That's like
And
what a
you know,
comedian does. Like
yeah,
that's like a rock star kind of a thing. Like going around having that kind of. I like to sleep in my own bed a little too much to be traveling too much. Even when I travel, like I take my own pillow. Like I'm a little 2-year-old. I gotta have my pillow. No, because I finally found the one. I did all this pillow research, dude. I was like, I should be
so which one
Travis
did you pick?
Pillow
Come on,
Right.
tell us the best one. What is the best pillow ever? Let's hear it. I'm going to give you my pick, but I want to hear yours.
Oh man, I got this one. It was from Sleep Number, and
Hmm.
it's one that has it's like on one side it's like just a little bit of a bump, and on the other side it's a big bump because like I sleep on my side sometimes or I sleep on my back other times, and so really I can just kind of flip the pillow around, and then I got a good sleep either way. Matter of fact, I just had the Sleep Number keeps track of how good your sleep is, right? And just the other day, I drank this stuff. It's magnesium blend. It's from a company called Beam, and it said you drink this, right before you go to bed, and you're gonna have your best sleep ever. Is what it said, and I did. And my score was the highest score that I've ever had. From I literally drank the stuff, and it's like it was like parsed out. So like at certain times, it's going to release certain things at certain times, and it releases the magnesium or whatever right when you're getting ready to go into REM sleep, dude. I slept like a log. I didn't get up to go take a piss. I slept the whole night. Had an 89 out of 100. So I was like, dude, that's the best score that I've ever had by a few points. Right?
Wow. So
Yeah.
it worked. Epic. It's
It
nice when a
totally
product
worked.
works.
Yeah. Not a product placement for Beam, but I was just like, I tried it and it was like, wow. It's amazing when something, I don't know if it was the, psychosomatic or a little bit of a placebo effect, but I was like, I was a little skeptical, but it actually worked out. So that was nice. What
That's
about
nice.
you? What's your favorite pillow?
Okay, so my favorite pillows are Kapok pillows, Kapok. Now the Kapok is in the larger family of trees called the Malvaceae. So one of the great trees in that family is the baobab. People know the baobab or the boabs of Australia, the baobab of South Africa, the baobabs of Madagascar, and they're actually growing quite all the way even into Senegal. So there's quite a lot of baobabs in Africa. And it's the tree that kind of looks inverted, like the top of the tree looks like the roots, and it has a big old belly.
Mhm.
Those exist in the Americas, and they're called Kapocs. And when they release their seeds, the seed has a giant parachute and it floats down. And that to me is the inspiration of Avatar. Remember when the seed was floating down in that film? That's
Mhm,
the
mhm.
Kapok. Now that it's a Kapok cotton, and that makes the best thing to stuff a pillow with ever. So that's
Really?
that's my choice.
Nice. I'll have to try one of those. I literally, I think I've kept the pillow business in the industry rolling by Travis trying to figure out which one the hell's the best pillow. I did try one that I liked that was a buckwheat. It was a buckwheat
Yep,
pillow, but
buckwheat
it's a little
seeds.
too hard. I was like, it's nice. I stay exactly right here, but it wasn't as great as I had. I literally was like, all right, I'm done with this one. Go to the pillow pile.
The pillow pile in the sky.
The pillow pile. So you moved to San Diego and you started this journey on that on nutrition, and I mean there's so much great food in San Diego, right? You have the authentic Mexican food. You got great citrus there. You have phenomenal avocados. And so, was that one of the, you started working there and you go, let's go, and you started figuring out how the whole process worked. Did it made you feel better? Right? Was
Oh
that,
yeah, of course. Yeah, you feel better, you eat better, you feel better. And I went all the way in. So I started doing the fasting, the raw food diet. I
mm,
started eating only food that I grew or food that came from farmers markets that were local. Local figs in Southern California are
mm,
epic, incredible. And so I was like, whoa, this is really something. In fact, probably there when I was about 27 or 28, I was one of the healthiest people on the whole earth. I
mm,
was like just in a whole nother level. So I'd been to that level before and also gotten the fasting experience in early in my life, which becomes that now that plays a much more important role in my life now, because
mhm.
once you get to a certain age, you can't, your metabolism just ain't the same as when you're, 25,
So
28
true.
years old. And so that's a big part of why I do the cleansing now and the detox, because I want to remain youthful. I want to keep all my faculties. I want my joints to function properly. And I want to, live to a ripe old age of, I don't know, 300, 3,000, something.
Well, with AI, you'll never die. There will always be a David Avocado Wolfe out there at this point. And so you have another book popped out around this detox, right? And detoxing, and why that's so important. And I'm actually fasting today. I'm doing what I call the WTF diet, which is I have a meal on Wednesday, and then I fast on Thursday, and then on Friday I'll eat again. So I give myself a nice, at least, normally 42 hours or so of fasting, sometimes 48 hours, but it's the WTF for me. And I watched Jason Fung talking about fasting, and then Dr. Pradeep Jamnadas talking about it, right? And it's like most people go through their life feasting but never fasting, right? And I had a huge meal last night. I went to a sporting Kansas City game with my business partner, Shane, and it was awesome. It's an MLS soccer match, dude, but they have this huge buffet and the suite. Just man, I ate a bunch. And I was like, dude, tomorrow, not eating, because I have feasted and I need to fast. And so let's talk a little bit about fasting and why that's so important, and how can there's going into the fast and then coming out of the fast. What do you think is the best protocol for that?
I worked this out over 30 years. So what I do today is I lead people in over a period of 2 weeks into the water fast. And that's just I tried 4 days. I tried 11 days. I tried a week. I tried every iteration of it.
Yeah.
And
when you were at that conference, you were on like 8 or 9 days of a fast. That's at that point, right?
Yeah. Yep. Actually, it started on day 9 of a water fast for me, and then day 10 hit. And then on day 11, I broke the water fast. So I was actually doing the events, prepping for the events, driving to the events, getting everything organized for the events while water fasting. And that's what I've gotten to. I've gotten to a point where I challenge myself. This time, though, this next one coming up, I'm not going to challenge myself, because that was really tough, Travis. That was a tough fast, but the rewards are amazing. You remember Jim Rohn, Jim Rohn, the great business coach, and he had great principles. And one of his great principles was, for every disciplined effort, there's a multiple reward. And so I just love that. And I took that to heart. So 2 weeks to prep. So what does that look like? 1 week of 1 meal a day, the rest liquids. I'm in that stage right now. Then I'll get to a week of all liquids. And then boom, come day 15. So a week. And then day 15, the beginning of the third week, I'm starting the water. And then I'll do the water for 2 weeks, most likely. I might go longer. I might go 16 days. I might even go longer than that. We'll see how this one goes. And the long fasting for my metabolism is what I need, because I was a raw foodist for all those years. My metabolism is very slow. My body organized itself to get every maximal amount of nutrition out of everything I was eating. So, I don't have the ability to just like burn that off quickly. My body changed because of the raw fooding. And therefore, I need to do long fasting to get into the depth of the real magic, which is you hit peak states, right? So especially when you get through. Okay, so let's just back up a little bit. We're all filled up with soot from the toxins of our environment, metabolic toxins, environmental toxins. So our fat tissue and all our tissue is filled up with black soot. And I know this because I've met with many doctors. I've had my own fat analyzed, looked at. The doctors looked at my fat more like, oh my God, your fat is like a child. Like, what's wrong with you? And I was like, I do fasting and cleansing. They never see that. They never see that. Everybody's fat is dark and black, and it basically looks like it's got soot in it. Anyway, so
is that because of like the heavy metals and all the toxins and all the food? Because I read that what your body tries to do is, you have this, and so it actually even collects and you gain more fat because you have these toxins, and so it wants to protect your bloodstream from these toxins. Right.
That's it. Right. So the fat, that's where the toxins go. They go to the fat. That's the point I'm getting at here, is that you have to burn off that toxic fat load. And that takes either long fasting and really healthy diet, or repeated cleansing. So, 4 times a year, I do it 4 times a year. You can get there. You have to work up to it. It takes a while, but eventually you get that cleaned off. Then you have healthy fat on your body. And that's much easier to burn off. And so the speed bumps, the ups and downs with the energy, the crashing, the I can't move stuff is all part of burning off all that soot, the toxic debris. Once you get past that stage, it's way easier to fast. So
Mm.
At that point, like say day 7, 8, 9, I'm in a state of absolute peak performance. I mean, I can't feel, there's no way you can feel better.
Mhm.
I have tons of
I've been that.
energy.
I've done 12 days, 12 and a half days, 300 hours was the longest that I fasted. And then I just felt weak and I was like, I was going to keep going, but I was like, no, 12 and a half days, that's pretty good for me. But then what's weird is that I've not been able to get past a week since then. But I know that if I get past day 3, day 4 and 5 just seem like, whoa, in your brain, when you're firing only on ketones in your brain, I think that I have been in more peak position then than ever, because your body seems to be like, oh yes, I've been craving this pure fuel, and it hasn't, you don't get that with glucogen and sugar and burning carbs like you normally do. And so that there's something to that. So I think there's something to day 3. I don't know if it's the food noise, if it's we're just bored. I know sometimes I want to do a fast, but I'm just like, it's time to go eat food. I'm bored. You know, it's like like if you think about it, you go hang out with friends or you're going on a date. Normally, it's like, where are we going to go eat? What are we? Yeah, it's like that is so ingrained in our culture of eating food collectively that it's so hard to break that cycle, even when you're in a fast. So it's just it's an interesting challenge for sure.
This cleansing and fasting and detox is the most challenging thing there is. Because it keeps coming up, you know, as time goes on, you're like, I want to do another one. And oh, it's tough. And you have to fight through it and then you get it done. And then like, okay, I did it. But then you're like, it's hard. This is truly to me, the real discovery that personal development technology brought me to. The
Mm,
Jim Rohns, the Tony Robbins, the Les Browns, the Brian
mm,
Tracy's, all those guys.
yeah.
Eventually I went, oh, the real test is the fasting.
Mm,
Because especially when, like, I'm not like laying down, you know, I'm actually out there just going full speed while fasting. You know, now I'm on my farm, so I'm going to be okay on this next fast because I can actually just do farm work and I don't have to be out in public. It's a little easier. But
mhm.
anyway, that it's a real challenge. And that's what I love about it. It's a continuous, like you're continuously just, if you're a person who likes to challenge yourself, if you like to achieve better results than you've ever achieved before, if you like to see improvement, if you like to see that there's progress in your life, this path is for you. This path is for you. Anyway, the fasting, when you get to say day 3, you're in ketosis. That's why you feel a change. Like all of a sudden, you're like, oh wait, all of a sudden your energy goes even. And it's not this up and down, the roller coaster stuff we're used to from eating, or even on day 1 or 2, or even 3 of the fast. So the ketosis is the key step. Once we're in ketosis, then boom, we're able to go a long time. Now, as you go longer, you're going to get to deeper and deeper and deeper levels of the fat burn off. And then you'll hit deeper and deeper levels of the soot and debris that we've accumulated. And so that's why I recommend making sure you have charcoal while you water fast,
Okay,
because
okay.
charcoal is a complete binder. It's a complete
Mm,
binder. And so it not only captures the toxin, it helps to get it out. It assists completely to get it out, actually. And that's why charcoal is an excellent tool for the water fasting and probably my main thing. And actually, last time when I saw you, I wasn't doing much charcoal because I was on the road. I was just hustling and I didn't really have time to even drink much water. I was just going, going, going.
mhm,
And
mhm.
I felt it. I felt it. I was like, oh, that was like probably heavy metals, because I felt that brain fog come up and I was like, that's not, no, what is this? And I was realized later, I was like, oh, that was heavy metals for sure.
Mhm. Yeah, that was gonna be my question on that. You know, it's like it seems interesting, you know, because I have a friend in the Philippines, and she was like, she's actually helps with our guests here, and she was like, "Oh, you're not feeling good? Well, then take some charcoal." Like that's in their culture. Taking charcoal and eating charcoal is regular for them, and I don't think that it's a normal thing that most people in the West even think about, right? And so I want to talk more about that, the charcoal for detoxification. Could you elaborate on the benefits? Should I take it even regularly if I'm not fasting, or is it just primarily like when you're fasting, make sure you're taking this because your body has to remove these toxins. You're burning the fat, and these toxins have nowhere to go, and they don't always flush out of your system. So it seems like they can create more problems if you're not eliminating them.
Years ago, I realized that there was really something that I was missing in the field of nutrition. So I set about to study the top 10 research studies that had been done on longevity. And it was interesting. Very, very quickly, I came across the carbon 60 molecule. This is about 9 years ago.
Okay.
And then so I started looking into the carbon 60. A friend of mine, she's a Olympic trainer. She trains Olympic athletes. She had one of her rowing students beat a 10-year plateau, which is really difficult, to be like 30 years of age or 31 or 32 and beat your best record ever that you set when you were like 23 or something like that. And so that really caught me. I was like, whoa, that's interesting. So that's got me on this carbon 60. Now, carbon 60 is a derivative of charcoal. It's a charcoal that's created when there's a high electrical charge. Like, for example, when lightning strikes a tree. That doesn't create a normal like forest fire charcoal. It creates a different type of charcoal. And of that, there's a fraction of it that's carbon 60. So the longevity research on carbon 60 is tremendous. The research on for athletes, this and that is just incredible. But then I realized one day, I was like, wait a second, it's just a derivative of charcoal. Maybe I should start taking charcoal. Then I got the books on charcoal and started reading it. And then I was like, oh my God, what is this? And let me just give you an example, like olive oil. Olive oil extends the lifespan of mammals by about 8, 9 to 18%.
Really?
That's very high. That's as high as any food in the world. And that's one of the greatest discoveries ever. And that's why I made people Mediterranean diet live a long time. Olive oil is a big reason. It could be the oleuropein, could be the actual monounsaturated oil. It could just be the lubrication effects. And maybe it's all of the above. And it's a really easy fat to burn. But interestingly on all that is that charcoal will beat that every day of the week. 23% increase of lifespan in mammals, 30% increase of lifespan in mammals, 32%, 33%, 40%, even 44% extension of lifespan in mammals. Now, let me just lay out what that means. Like a human being, let's say
real quick before you lay that out, those are some big numbers. Like
big numbers.
Huge number. Like, what's the source behind that? Because I know with YouTube, they're gonna be, oh yeah, he's making unsighted things over here, you guys.
He can look up the fact checkers or the fake checkers can look up Frolkis's research, Frolkis, and check out Frolkis's research on charcoal. And there's numerous people over the years, and there's an incredible history of this. We never were told that charcoal extends the lifespan of mammals in laboratory settings.
We've never heard that. Like my sister's got a PhD in biology and microbiology. She's brilliant. You never heard of this? I asked her, I said, what do you think about that? What? Like, it's amazing how much we don't know. Like, we don't know what we don't know because someone just kind of just gets, they don't need to know this. You got it.
So here's another piece of this is that 80 years of research has demonstrated this, plus 80 years of research has demonstrated that charcoal does not interfere with calcium absorption or magnesium absorption or vitamin C or B vitamins or things you need. Now, how does it know? And there's a long discourse on that. And the scientists say, it's van der Waals forces or it's pi stacking. And these are the fancy terms to describe how charcoal can selectively uptake toxic uranium, for example, or plasticizers or something like that, and not affect calcium or magnesium or things we need, iron or copper or zinc or things like that. So this selective ability of charcoal actually in reality is not understood. Nobody actually really knows the answer. I wrote a whole book on it. I haven't published it yet, but I realized, nobody knows. It adheres to substances too, like a magnet. It does not absorb like a sponge.
Wow.
That's a myth. But anyway, let's get on to what this all means. So what this all means is that, there's a whole world of longevity that we didn't know about. So I got into consistently taking charcoal. I take charcoal all the time. I take charcoal almost every single day. If somebody goes out on a bender, I would really recommend having charcoal the next morning because you're going to feel better quicker. That's for sure. It'll neutralize liver toxins faster than anything. I mean, there's nothing is going to clean up your system better than the best filter known, which is charcoal. If we want to filter our water, charcoal filter is always there. You want to filter your air. I've got an air doctor sitting right there. You can see it right there. See that? That has a charcoal filter in it. I got so far into it, I put charcoal down all the drains in this house, all the toilets in this house, because this is an old house, and it cleaned up all the odors. No more odors out of any of the toilets, any of that. And then I started using charcoal in farming. It's known as biochar. So this whole farm has had tons of charcoal put on the land, tons. It's so epic. I mean, it just, because everything becomes clean. You feel it's like, this is how you make everything clean. And you get clean.
Detoxing the environment. As well as your internal environment, you're detoxing your external environment. So I want to ask about this real quick because you mentioned something about olive oil. And, Dr. Edward Group, who was episode number 1 of this, but it's not on YouTube because they banned it in 42 minutes. So it's only on Rumble. He was talking about and was telling me about his liver detox, right? And olive oil, mixing it with the lemon. And then he also has his own liver tincture, and you pour it into distilled water, and then you drink that over 2 days. And I've done that 3 times now. And he said every time you do it, you most likely you're cleaning your system out by about 15% or cleaning out your liver. Now, David, my mother, on the 15th of May, she had her gallbladder removed.
Oh no.
I know, because we were trying to solve it for her beforehand, but she had a 7-inch by 4-inch bulge because her gallbladder was so compacted full of stones. And I asked her, like, well, have your doctors ever told you to do a detox or like to flush that out? And never. And so think about people in their 70s and 80s. They've never heard that they need to do a detox. And we tried to do it. I contacted Dr. Group and I said, hey, what should we do? And he's like, all right, do this, get some, blend this all together. And then she did it. And she was cussing me. She's like, that was the worst tasted shit I have ever tasted in my entire life. It was hilarious. Like she was ranting about it for days afterwards. Like, it was so putrid. I was like, well, what do you think? It's going to taste good when you've destroyed your body for so long? So the surgery went well. She's feeling much better. But I mean, think about that. If her gallbladder has so many stones compacted in there, then her liver that's right above it is sitting there with lots of stones. And so it would seem to me that based on what you're saying and what Dr. Group was saying, charcoal, olive oil, some lemon, regularly, stuff like that could help you on an ongoing basis to just keep that liver feeling better, it would seem.
Yes, exactly. There's another unwritten theme too that Dr. Group's aware of and that in our health field we're aware of, which is the body is self-healing. And that's important to know. So if you give your body a chance, you eat less, you do detoxes, you fast, you do things like, for example, castor packs on your liver to try to break down that calculi, those hard bits of material that are leftover residues of metabolic waste and environmental waste. You can actually get your liver functioning properly because your liver rejuvenates quicker than any organ. And the step that people, are always looking for is like, okay, how do I actually get myself healthier, in the easiest and quickest way? And liver cleansing is one of the best ways to do that because you start to flush out the debris of all that fast food, the junk, when we were completely unconscious eating candy and whatever, you start to get it out and you start to go, whoa, I'm starting to get better. I'm starting to get healthier. And then the momentum builds. So I like the liver cleansing. I just did one, actually. I just did a Dr. Group liver cleanse 3 days ago. I mean, it was 4 days leading up to it. And then we drank the olive oil and we laid on our side with the castor packs and did exactly the way it's laid out. It was great.
Yeah. I think that olive oil, you take in 3 or 4 ounces of olive oil and then squeezing in 1 lemon and mixing that up. I thought it was going to be it was going to be horrible. It wasn't horrible at all, like that alone. But I think, Mick, because we didn't have Dr. Group's liver health cleanse thing because I had already used mine when by the time that she went and she was almost having an emergency thing. And actually her gallbladder was starting to rip. They could see it when they went in there and they looked. And I was like, that's huge. That's like, and it was like a brick in there and they were pulling them out and they were just like, dude, look at these. Like, so I just look at that and I think about how many other people out there probably need to do some sort of beginning the process. And you don't have to go, it seems to me, you don't have to go raw vegan like, some would do, like you would do, but going through and cleaning it out and then taking that charcoal to get that stuff out, because it seems like, all right, your liver's getting rid of it, but where does it go? Well, if you're not able to grab it, then it's just going to get stored in fat somewhere else, right?
That's right. Exactly. Now it's interesting. There's, fiber, for example, is really good at drawing out debris out of the body and toxins out of the body. And that's why you have to eat
some psyllium husks or something would be smart.
Psyllium husks would be great. Yep. Chia seed's better. I like chia seed better.
Chia seed's okay.
It's just a little bit more of a food. Plus a lot of the psyllium husk that makes it into America has been irradiated. So I like going with organic chia seed. That's a really good one. And
That
that
becomes
gelatin,
gelatinous kind of when you mix it up, like the chia seeds become. So that's kind of grabbing stuff as well.
that's kind of its nature, right? When it gels up, it's also drawing into itself because the seed is sprouting, so it wants to pull into itself all
Mm.
of the debris that's around, right? It's pulling in minerals and pulling everything. And that's why these formulas always have a gelatinous component. It'll be like a psyllium seed or a chia or a flax or a marshmallow root, or it'll be a slippery elm, something that has that gelling quality, or sea moss is another one that they use. And those are all great. And I recommend all those things in the right time. If you're going to do psyllium, though, it's got to be organic. And
Dude, I
so
gotta mention on that because I ordered some. I got some. It was highly rated on Amazon, psyllium husk and whatever. And dude, I read the ingredients on it after I drink it and I mix it up, and I was like, "Ooh, that kind of tasted relatively orange. Like it had a little orange flavor to it." What are the ingredients? Aspartame. And I was like, "What? How could you even have? How could you put aspartame in your in psyllium husks? Are you
whoa.
serious? That's just devious to me,
It
diabolical.
is. There's a lot of devious stuff that goes on in the health world, right? It's just look at the pharmaceutical industry and the stuff they're
Right.
up to. And then you're like, oh, it's got to be better, like in the organic food industry, and it is better, but there's still like little scammer things like that, like aspartame. What's that doing in
Yeah.
there? You just
Right.
want the organic, original food, and that's why I'm such a big fan of herbalism. Learning about the herbs in your environment. The herbs in this environment are epic. I mean, the
Mhm.
medicinal mushrooms and the wild food in this environment is insane.
Mm.
And my God, once you have that and once you know that, you're not in the fear of like, oh my God, they're going to starve us out, we're going to run out of food, because you know how to forage in your own environment. Great skill to have. The way we like to say this, Travis, here's the term, the phrase, the turn of phrase actually, which is herbal illiteracy is deadly.
Oh wow.
Herbal
Herbal
illiteracy is
illiteracy.
deadly. It
Wow.
is, because then you'll get bought into all the other stuff they're trying to sell you on, and the doctors and all the other thing, and eventually, they'll wipe you out. So, by the way, with
You
your
know,
mom,
I want to mention something about that because I don't remember who said it, but I saw it on a video the other day, and it was almost like, I think it might have been Cat Williams was said this, and I know I watched the. Have you seen the Joe Rogan Terrence Williams interview yet?
I haven't. I just saw a clip of it last night, and it was like a minute. That's it. So I got to
Whoa,
dig in.
dude, that dude is so awake. Like he's genius level. You have to watch that one.
Okay.
And I'm watching through. I've watched it and then I've watched part of it again because he's talking about things that, for one, I'm surprised YouTube didn't say, "Meh, you can't be talking about this because this is not scientifically approved." But he's talking about like the whole scientific industry needs an enema. Like it needs a complete reboot because the foundations of what they were talking about is not even correct. But what was interesting was the quote that I had heard the other day was I think it was Cat Williams, and he was talking about the creator of all things, like how there has to be a God, right? And he was like he mentioned a comment about, well, if your DNA is fused, then there has to be a fuser. And then he said, and if you come here on Earth and like there's all these herbs and all of these things that can heal all these future ailments, like, oh, look at this. This causes this and this fixes that and this does this. Like, what? Like, wow, and I'm not an overtly religious person, but I do believe there's a creator of all things out there. I think religion has been set up to be dogmatic and then put people against other people, like, oh, you're Muslim, oh, you're Christian, oh, you're this, oh, you're atheist. Like it just, all the wars that have happened over time over not believing your version of this or their version of that. I'm like, hey, we're all spiritual beings having a human experience here on this third rock from this sun. We better find a way to get along or we're all going to not be here. So let's work on that, right? There's so many conflicts and stuff. It's almost like let's just work through all this stuff. There has to be a creator. Are you going to call it one of the 72 names for it? Feel free, call it whichever one you want, but let's not, penalize or fight people based on what they believe versus what you believe. And the division in the world right now, David, is just unbelievable.
It's insane. And there's two things that we do about that. One is that we get everybody together, every race, religion, every walk of life, every level of class, everything. We got people in there who are millionaires, people in there who can't, they can't clack 2 pennies together. And we do a cleanse together. And we're doing it right now. It's just beginning. So, it kicks off actually in about 9 days, 8 days officially. I mean, I've been doing it for a while already. And that's a really cool thing for people to be doing together, because then we face the real monsters, which are internal, right? The real monsters are self-talk. That's a real monster, a deadly monster, crazy, our emotional,
Right.
corrosive voice. You can't, don't do this, pain, that. That's the monster, right? So we face
the internal monster, the mindset monster is the worst one, because you tell yourself, we are on episode 4. We interviewed Dr. Bradley Nelson, and he was one of the reasons why I wanted to do this show. And he was talking about how, emotions can be inherited from your ancestors, right? Because if energy never dies, so if they've never worked through some of these things, then they pass on. You get them passed on, and it's just so fascinating how from we're just all so similar, and we should definitely be getting along, but we don't. We allow the powers that be to sort of tell us what they want, and there's such a few amount, right? But like they just control. You control the money, you control the systems, right? And so it's just so much going on with all of that there for sure. And we're about to get into the second part of the thing, but we still got some few questions over here on this side. But it's like,
okay,
dude, I just want to go in on some of that. Like, oh, what about this? Ooh, what about?
I want to get into this with you. I want to get into another thing that really helps to, I think, sort out people's spiritual angst, right? Their turbulent troubles, and are we alone in the universe, and all this chaos that's been thrown at us? And it's just all BS. And one of the things that stops that nonsense and that psychobabble instantly is psychedelic drugs, right? So you go into the teepee with us in Native American church, and we pray all night. We eat that medicine. It just sorts out all those things that, like, okay, is the spirit world real? Is God real? It's like, oh, you're going to find out for real. Quanah Parker, who founded Native American Church, he said it this way. He said, the white man goes into church and prays to his God. The red man goes into his teepee and talks with God.
That's
right.
So good.
It's right there, right? And that, and just that's why these plants are with us in particular, in my opinion, is because they sort out this materialist mindset that, like, oh, we're alone, and like there's no other intelligence, and just all this nonsense that we were sold. Once you get out of that spiritual angst, that's probably the best way to describe it. You're just become a more wholesome being, because then you're not worried about that stuff. You're not, well, oh my God, I'm going to die, and the loneliness, I'm alone in the universe, and just all that stuff is just so bad. That those programs are terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And my point from the previous one was he has a new thing called the belief code, and what you believe, and you have some of these detrimental beliefs that it's that mindset thing. It's that psychobabble thing that you're talking about, right? And those most illnesses, what they were saying, either come from some sort of emotion that's buried, or some sort of mindset belief that you have that's a mindset monster that is leading you down the wrong path. You start telling yourself, oh, I can't do this. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, it's getting worse. Oh, this is happening. Oh God, this, and you start experiencing the future pains of tomorrow and stealing your joy away from today. And those mindset monsters are brutal. And I do want to.
That's been my experience, by the way. What you just said. That's a 30 years experience in the health field. Sure. You're exactly right. There's never a situation where it's not mental or emotional, ever. Anybody's crisis, their health crisis, where they end up in their life, it's a mindset that led them there. It was belief systems they bought into. That how many belief systems have we had that turned out to be totally phony and just wrong? So and then the emotional trauma, like an imprint of an emotional trauma.
Yeah. I love what you said about, having some sort of spiritual experience through some sort of psychedelics. I think I've always been a firm believer that if everyone, and this is not medical advice, YouTube. Well, I've always believed that if everyone had shrooms, once a year, and the Mayans had the day out of time, which was July 25th, right? And I think if everybody had shrooms, a nice little dose on the 25th of July, and then how are you going to come out of that and being mad or feeling divided from anybody? Like anytime I've ever tried medicinal mushrooms, I always come out of it just like, whoa, your heart just blown out, just full of love, and you're just so happy and grateful. And so, you just have so much understanding and empathy. I think a lot of what's missing today, David, is empathy. Like I'm seeing people, when you see fights and stuff that's happened kind of in the hood and how they're just brutal and just curb stomping people. And I'm like, there is zero empathy happening in the world. And I think that we got to fix that because we need love, my brother.
Right on. Well said. And that's one of the things we like to do in the TP too with Native American churches. Get everybody in that TP and you feel each other's pain. And just that's what empathy is about, just knowing what it's like to be in someone else's shoes. And if we could get more of that, that's what real education's about. That's what real spiritual education is about. So step by step, I think we are getting there. Actually, I really do. I mean, we see it now because all have phones and we see it on video, but it's always been going on. But I would say this: there's been a big change in this world for the better. More and more people are realizing that it's governments, it's all lies. The corporations, it's all lies. The system we're in is the Babylon beast system, and we don't want it. And we will eventually overturn it. So my personal feeling from all my research and like, are we in the Kali Yuga, the age of darkness? Or what is there is so we're in? We're in. As my personal feeling from the research I've done is that we're at the end of it. That's why we're seeing the wizard behind the scenes, and we're saying, "Oh, look at that! Oh, look what they've been up to! Oh, they've been doing this." And then the next step is the community building, which builds the next civilization. And step by step by step, we move out of this with real new freedoms, which is freedom of privacy. We got to have that. It's a big one, right? So that nobody can spy on you. Freedom to choose the currency you want. No government gets to tell you you're only going to use this currency. It's a competition. It's capitalism, actually, real capitalism, not crony capitalism. And so these are the things that are rising up in the moment right now. And these are we're in the crisis of our times. We'll get through it. We're in a winter right now, but guess what follows winter every single time?
Mm-hmm. Well, first comes spring and then comes summer. And I want to talk about that. So the future civilization that we're moving into, I want to step back a little bit because you touched base on Quanah Parker. And you mentioned at the Rejuvenation Summit, you mentioned a book that you just read, The Empire of the Summer Moon. And I immediately went out and got it and did the audio of that and listened to that. And the Comanches, holy shit, dude, the Comanches. Whoa. So what drew you originally to that book? And then what insights did you gain about that? Because I was blown away by reading that thing.
Well, at that time, I had moved all my business and everything out of Hawaii and California to Texas. And so I was really getting into like the Texas life. And, we're now a Texas-based business now. So now we're in there. I love Texas. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to read about Texas history. So a friend of mine was like, "You've read Empire of the Summer Moon?" I was like, "No." I immediately got it and read it. And I was like, oh, here's the whole thing on the Comanches. Here's the real story of the Comanches were the only tribe of people that I can confirm in the world ever. We hear about the Scythians and other tribes, but we can confirm 100% that the Comanches ate only wild food. They were 100% wild food eating people. And what an amazing story and lineage and history. And Quanah Parker was born into that community. He was a Comanche. And so the Comanches were the last Native Americans standing against the U.S. Army. And they battled the U.S. Army to the last man. And eventually they were defeated, there was just too many people coming in, too much army and not enough Comanches. And that all went down probably in the 1880s. And so that was one of the big takeaways is just that, whoa, the Comanches were a people of wild food. They turned me on to cool places like Palo Duro. Palo Duro is it's kind of the Grand Canyon of Texas, one of the best sites probably in North America, actually. And they turned me on to the amazing skills that they had to, for example, they made all their bows out of one of my favorite trees, which is the Osage orange, or the horse apple. Many people have seen that fruit. It's a big old fruit. It's not edible. And it looks like this artifact. It looks like a giant mulberry or breadfruit or something. But there it is in Texas, one of the greatest woods in North America. It's the hottest burning wood in North America. And still today,
Really?
if you're into bows and arrows, the best bows in North America are made out of Osage orange or Maclura pomifera, one of my great favorite trees ever.
Yeah, it was so fascinating, because I've not known a lot about the Comanches. I've heard about the Apaches and the Cherokee, and I grew up in Missouri, and I moved to Puerto Rico, and now I moved back to Missouri to be back here near my kids. But it was really fascinating to me to kind of see how the Texas Rangers were approaching them, and how historically the U.S. Army, when they're going into battle, they dismount and then they got to load their gun and then they're ready to go. Where the Comanches would literally, once they learned horse riding from the Spanish, and they got Spanish horses, right, and they get the smaller, quicker ones, and they're getting on that thing. And then whenever they go to battle and they dismount and they're shooting, then they would just slide on the side of the horse, the thing's still riding, reach back, grab 4 or 5 arrows, and be like, foo, 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 foo. Like, dude, unbelievable. You just listen to that, you're like, these guys were some of the most amazing horse rider warriors. And then you just knew how brutal they were. So I know if I'm a Texan and you're like, we got to get rid of these Comanches. Like, dude, I understand they're here, but here we are now. Like, dude, they would brutally rape you. They would drag you behind their horses for miles and then burn you in fire, like scalp you. Like, dude, like what do you can just see how they would look at it if you were a pioneer, right? And let me ask this: have you seen the any of the Yellowstone series, the TV show, at all?
No, nope.
So I hadn't either, but I discovered that the guy who is doing the guy who's going to do Empire of the Summer Moon is the same guy, the producer of Yellowstone.
Oh,
And
cool.
Yellowstone has Kevin Costner in it, so he's got more. It's more stuff that's happening now, but they've done 2 prequels. And they did one that was called 1883, and that's about what happened when they came into the area in 1883. And there's another one called 1923. And I would suggest, here's what I did. I went and watched a 20-minute recap of 1883, and then I watched the series 1923, and it has Harrison Ford as the main rancher guy, and then his wife is Helen Mirren, but there's 3 concurrent stories going on. And one of the stories is these Native American girls who are now forced to be in a Catholic church school with these nuns who are just brutal and just mean as shit. You know what I mean? You could just see, like, dude, if I was going to school and I had these nuns, I got to preface that because I was I'm one of the final classes in Missouri where the teachers could literally spank you if they were mad at you or thwack you with rulers and shit, right? So my junior year, I would blurt out something, say something funny, and I'd have to go out in the hall, and then multiple teachers would have to witness it. And then I'd get my ass beat 3 or 4 swats, and then I'd go about my day. And finally, my senior year in 1991, they finally stopped that. So they were allowing teachers to be so brutal to these kids, but it's just so fascinating. That whole night.
Was that in Kansas City, or what area of Missouri was that?
Yeah, I was in the town called Butler, Missouri, okay, which is about an hour south of Kansas City. So it's just kind of weird to think about how far we've gone from. I think they went a little too far then, because they were trying to beat the hilarity out of me. Like, you can't stop me from being a smart ass. Like, I love laughter, so I want to make people laugh. But they were, and I think now we're at a point where teachers, crazy, you can't even say anything to a student. And then so we've gone from one spectrum to another, and there's no discipline. And if there's no discipline, it seems like there's no empathy. I don't know.
Yeah, that well said. I mean, you kind of touched on a big theme of our times, which is we flipped from one extreme all the way to another extreme, and virtue is a balance of forces. And therefore, we flipped right. Basically, it's kind of like an opposame instead of an opposite. It's an opposame, kind of like, National Socialism is kind of the same as, Soviet communism. It's both state control. We're taking all your money. We're going to just top down control. Everything's centralized. So they're opposames. And so we're looking for something in the middle that balances. And so the great thinkers over the years, from Aristotle to Rudolf Steiner, saw this coming. They're like, oh, it's going to flip. It's going to flip from this extreme, and then it's going to flip all the way over to that extreme. So, for example, you'll never experience more hate than from the anti-hate crowd.
Yeah, so true. Like, oh my God, the violence and the hate they spew, because they get triggered a little bit, then it's madness.
Right. And we could go into like the anti-racist crowd. You'll never get more racism than from them. It's intense. Right. And it's just
because they're anti something. They're not for something. They're anti something. That goes back to, I think, Mother Teresa says, I'm not going to be anti-war, but when you want to be pro-peace, let me know. I'm down with pro-peace. And the thing is when you vehemently oppose something, you are anti that, but instead you got to do the opposite of it and bring that into place, because there's a balance, right?
Yeah, you become it. So this is the great teaching from Aristotle to Rudolf Steiner, the great discovery of Western civilization, that virtue is a balance of forces. Mm-hmm. And so, it's like you got to love like a mother, but you got to fight like a father. You can't be just one, right? You can't. If discipline goes out and the father goes out, look at all the troubles. We now know. We know.
We've
devastated our country. Our country. It devastated me. I had no father. My father wasn't around. He's still alive, and I do have a father, but I mean, he wasn't there. He wasn't around. I was raised by a single mom.
Yeah, and that creates an interesting scenario, right? My biological father bailed when I was 2, and then my stepdad was an asshole to me. He was really nice and sweet to his 2 kids they had, but he was always rude to me. His favorite words for me were lard ass and worthless. And I was like, dude,
damn.
It pained me for the longest time. And it caused some of my own sort of emotional imbalance that took a while for me to realize, look, these are his issues. These are not mine. His dad was an asshole to him. And so he thinks he needs to be an asshole to me. Now I've had kids and I've been overly nice to them. So I think that there's a balance there that I even screwed up, because they're kind of spoiled, because I realized how my dad was an asshole and I needed to be nice, and then being nice doesn't even work sometimes, right? So it's like, there's no parental sort of blueprint that comes out the vagina with the kid. You got to figure it out as you go.
It's crazy how that ripples over the generations, just what you just described. It's crazy how what happens, as a result of one parent being totally out of balance, or, being absent. Yeah. So this is the reason why, by the way, we've got to get back to like a really healthy family environment, because that's where it all starts. Because once you get the father out of the house, then the kids being raised by the school and the other kids. And so that's where the discipline comes from, which is non-existent. And the next thing you know, you've got a juvenile delinquent, you've got a thief, you've got a robber, you've got a thugger, drugger, whatever.
Somebody without empathy out there trying to run. Selfish, attention-seeking with zero empathy is what most of what Gen Z seems to be. I'm not making a generalization, but I kind of am. Not everyone's like that, but I mean, just even recently with, the kicker from the Kansas City Chiefs, he came out and basically, I watched the video and he was like, yeah, having a mom at home is great for your kids, and women probably should they've been lied to and said, go get a career when you should be at home and raising your kids. And then that freaked people out. Like, he said it in some way, but dude, here he is. He's a Catholic believing dude giving a speech at a Catholic place, a school during a graduation. Some of the stuff he probably shouldn't have said. I live in Kansas City, so I'm a Chiefs fan, but so it's just kind of weird how but why is it that this guy, they want to cancel this dude, but the dude who's on the Chiefs, who just, was driving 120 miles an hour in his Lamborghini and crashed into people all over, they don't want to cancel him? It's so weird how so select few are so vocal, and it's like they've never had discipline in their life. So like they're spoiled rotten. They all remind me of on Willy Wonka's Veruca Salt. I want a golden goose, Daddy. Oh, but I want. You're like, no, you can't have it. What, Daddy? What you mean? Like, they're all a bunch of generation of Veruca Salts, David.
Totally. Well said. By the way, when I first saw Charlie in the Chocolate Factory, the old one, the Gene Wilder one, I was in Missouri, actually in Moberly, Missouri, I don't know if you've ever been out that way, but I
Yeah.
grew up also a lot in Missouri. My aunt was from Missouri, and my parents met in Missouri. So
Oh,
that,
nice.
that Missouri is deep in my heart, actually. Columbia, Missouri,
Okay.
Moberly, Buckland
Nice.
County, up in there. So if you believe the Mormons say the final battle goes down in Missouri. I don't know if you know that.
Shit, I better go. I better move.
Or just the guy who runs our nonprofit. And by the way, I'm a maniacal tree planter. I think you know that about me. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Actually, remind me, I got a guy I need to introduce you to who wants to cryptotize and create TreeFi with
nice.
yeah, and you got to chat with him. And we're in this group, we're in a startup accelerator right now around Bitcoin. And he's just in there all day, tree. And so I'm starting just making jokes about trees to him, like NF trees, what you need NF trees. And he's like, haha. But it's like, well, I need to connect you too, because I think you could probably help him. Because if you think about, the ability to plant a tree and then the future yield from a tree, like how much, like if you planted an avocado tree all over the place, right? Your special trees, you planted those, like how much wealth will that generate over the year? How many people will that feed over the year? So he could have something there, but his message is a little off. But yeah, trees. You love to plant trees. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the guy who runs our nonprofit, we plant trees all over the world. They're planting today. We plant about somewhere between 50 and 90,000 trees a year. And so over the years, we planted
that's
over
impressive. What kind of trees?
Mostly fruit, nut, and medicinal trees. Nut, and medicinal trees. So we don't really do ornamentals. We want useful trees. Things like we're planting in India, we're planting neem trees. Neem is an edible, but it makes a great insecticide. You can just take that leaf, make a tea out of it, and spray it on your orchard, and boom, all the bugs are out. But
why even have ornamental trees though? If you think about it, like all these Americans have this big yard and they got stupid trees that they can't do it, that doesn't yield them anything. They can't have a garden in their yard. Like, this is weird.
I never understood it. I never could comprehend it. I couldn't, I guess I was a black sheep of the family, but this particular person who runs our nonprofit, one of the things I love about him is he says, I want to be right in the middle of it. If things are going to go down, I don't want to be out in the middle of nowhere. I want to be right in the middle of the action. I was like, wow, dude, that's a cool perspective. All right, cool. Right on. Yes. And what a cool perspective. Because all of us were thinking, oh my God, if, shit goes down in the cities or whatever, what are we going to do? And he's already decided, I want to be in the middle of it. And I was like, wow, cool decision. Rad.
Yeah. Good luck with that. And I think it depends on how old your kids are. Right. Because I think when I'm younger, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to be right in. And then the otherwise, I'm like, oh, you know what? But now my kids have gotten older, which is good, and they understand what's going on. So that's one thing that I think I'm pretty proud of, is that I have two kids that are Gen Z, and neither one of them are woke, to what's going on. They're aware of what's actually going on, because even when they were growing up, it'd be like, oh, you see this? Oh, now look at this. And then what's crazy is if they've seen me time and time again, I'm like 90+% accurate on my conspiracy theories. And so like, what's so great is like, I'm like, oh wait, watch this. No. And then what I said comes true, and they go, oh, wow. So they listen to me, which is a very positive thing that maybe not every parent can have. But I love that. I love that idea of 90,000 trees a year, bro. That is a lot of trees, dude. That is so much future food you are planting out. Oh my God.
Our strategy and our saying, our mantra is, we overgrow the government. We overgrow the government. We'll outplant them. We'll reforest faster than they can cut it down. There is a dynamic, by the way, speaking of conspiracy theories, this is kind of an interesting dynamic. There definitely is a dynamic between the banksters and the old growth forests. The banksters are doing everything they can to wipe out all the old growth forests. It's just a dynamic that it's cool to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. And a lot of them, I mean, that's been going on since William Randolph Hearst, right?
Yep.
I mean, if you go back and go way back, you know that he owned all those forests in Washington and Oregon. And that was one of the reasons why marijuana was illegal, because he had all these trees and wanted to use those for all of his 50+ newspapers instead of growing hemp. But if you think you grow hemp, you can grow 2 crops of hemp. So my thought has always been this, and so you're going an opposite route. My thought has always been, why not grow 2 crops of hemp in the same acreage? Because over that 20 years, I have 40 crops that I've done. And if you're planting trees, then you only have one crop of 20 years. But then again, once those trees are mature, then you're generating lots of fruit and lots of fruit. Whereas you have to keep doing that if you're growing hemp, right?
Yes, and topsoil too. The tree generates topsoil because all those leaves break down. So it's pulling things up from the earth
That's
and
really good
dropping it
point.
on the earth. So this is a crazy thing, Travis, that I've learned, farming here. There's a great forest right here, right next to my house. And there's all kinds of wild creatures. I just walked out the side and there was a groundhog coming at my yard. I was like, you ain't coming in here. He turned around and ran the other way. If I want good dirt, I don't need to go to a store. I go out to the forest. There's plenty of great dirt in that forest. I don't need to buy dirt. I don't need to buy soil. And by the way, if I bought soil from the store, like a nursery or something, and I brought it in here, all the animals go, oh, there's something different about that. I'm going to come for that. And they'll all be on my new trees. They'll be eating everything in my yard. But as long as I keep it real forest soil and I don't make anything too different from how the forest is, they don't detect it.
Huh. That's fascinating. I love that. There's so many interesting. I think we could have conversations for hours over here, brother. Let's start wrapping this version up, and then we'll go over and do another couple 20 minutes or so on the other side. So let's just ask this then. If a beginner, if they made it this far in the podcast, what advice would you give them who is new to detoxification, and then they're skeptical about the benefits? Just kind of a quick synopsis. How can they get started? What should they do? And a little bit of love along the way.
Okay, well, one thing, I think charcoal's a really good start. Get on an activated charcoal product. I like my coal biter product. That's why I invented it. That's a really cool activated charcoal product that we basically based it on the Scandinavian mythology about the coal biter. The coal biter was the child in the family who was the runt of the litter, couldn't handle the sleet, the snow, the chaos of the Arctic conditions. And so that little kid would stay home and tend to the home fire and then eat the charcoal at the perimeter of the fire. And over a period of age 7 to 14 would be transformed into the most resilient, the strongest, the most capable, and would actually end up running the farm. And that's a whole thing. J.R.R. Tolkien and C.S. Lewis had an entire club in Oxford that was called the Coal Biters based on that mythology.
Really? Because they were eating charcoal.
Eating charcoal. Yep. The coal biter.
I remember being a kid and get your hands off of that. You don't want to eat that. I don't know. I think there's maybe an inherent something within your DNA to make you want to try it or taste it, but then, oh no, you can't eat that.
It's instinct, right? It's like why, kids will eat weird things, why is a kid eating that? It's because they're deficient in calcium or they need that. So their instinct overwhelms their program even. And charcoal is one of those things. Now, in a toxic world, I'd say charcoal is key, and that's a good place to start. Then eventually you want to start disciplining yourself and saying, hey, I'm going to go organic. We're going to eat organic. I want to eat local. Let's get to a local farmer. Let's start talking to farmers. Let's shop at farmers markets. And then step by step, you can work your way into an actual detox, like the things we do, a 3-week long detox. And you just go through day 1 and day 2 and day 3, and you just go through the process. Just like, you've learned to do that. You've learned okay, Dr. Group said to do this. Okay, I'm going to do this on this day. And then the next day he said, do this. I'm going to do that. And
I did a 30-day cleanse from him because he goes, well, here's what you need. And I think it's interesting. You go to the website and you're like, okay, well, where do I even begin? So he needs to have buy all of this. It's $500 or whatever, and do your 30-day cleanse. And here it all is, because he's got a protocol. Take 3 of these in the morning and then take 3 of these at night. And then and you have go, dude, I got to ask this for you though. How do you take so many effing pills, so many different supplements and stuff? It's like, I look at I'm going through and making my daily concoction, and I'm like, holy shit, there's so many vitamins here. I guess, well, it's better to take vitamins than it is to take pharmaceuticals, but wow, this is a lot.
It's, the way I deal with it is I just don't eat. I'll just take a whole bunch of supplements and things with water and a little bit of sea salt, and boom, I just don't need to eat a meal. That's my meal. Yeah. I don't really take supplements multivitamins or things like that. I don't take that kind of stuff. I basically take things that are concentrated herbs or, things that are really highly regarded in Chinese medicine or Shilajit or things like that. So, I'm not, when I think of supplements, I kind of think of multivitamins, which is not my jam.
Not good at all. Those are not really, that's just a big really processed thing that your body a lot of times can't even process it.
Yeah, their research on it showed that most people had it coming right through the other end.
Yeah. Right on. So you would say basically get yourself some charcoal, and then I guess in a pill form of charcoal. What do you think? Couple, two, three of them a day in the morning or during the day, or
I love the way we do the cold biter, which is an encapsulated into tapioca a capsule. And the
Mhm.
reason why that's so cool is because you have a packet of it. Now, I've done the other thing, which is that's before I developed my own charcoal products. I used to get the bulk charcoal. Man, it gets everywhere. It gets
Yeah.
everywhere. And it was a kind of a nightmare. Like if I have a little packet like this, I can just open that capsule if necessary. For example, one day, Travis, I went into my woodshed. I just ripped it out, so it's not there anymore. But there was a wasp basically did a nosedive on me and stung me in the eye, in the
What
eyeball.
in the eyeball?
On the eyeball. I mean,
Oh,
it was the craziest thing ever. I just had to run in there and grab some and then run out and jump in the car and drive off. And I
man.
got stung in the eyeball and I was like, oh my God. So I ran in here and I wetted my finger and I opened up a thing and I just got that charcoal on my wet finger and I put it right on it. I put it right on it to pull the poison out immediately. And
Wow.
and I just did that for about 20 minutes and it was amazing. I was able to drive away. Now my whole face swelled up. It looked like I got punched in the eye, but I wasn't in pain and I was able to drive. That's the power. I mean, there's so many
Wow.
amazing. So each one of those capsules of cold biter to me in my mind is like, it's such a cool way of transporting and holding the substance. Cause a little child gets stung by a bee, no problem. Wet it, open it up right there. It's all a nice, easy emergency aid kit kind of setup.
Mhm. What kind of wood are you using to create this charcoal? Does it even matter what kind of wood?
It definitely matters. Traditionally, like in Europe, they'd use hardwoods like willow or birch. And so that was the traditional thing in Europe. As you go further south, it's going to be more coconut shell or walnut shell. So, for example, in like Mediterranean countries, they use walnut shell because it was dense. And then
Mhm.
when you get into the tropics, they use coconut shell.
Okay. That's fascinating. So that's great. Well, where would you think most people should connect with you online? Where do you prefer? I know you got davidwolf.com. There's some other ones. What is your preferred place people can connect?
I update the most frequencylifestyle.org. Frequencylifestyle.org. That's where our latest thing. Okay, what are we doing? We're doing a show on like last night we did a show on we broadcast on Twitter and on Facebook and on Telegram of all things, those three
Mhm.
platforms.
Mhm.
And we'll announce that on Frequency Lifestyle. That's how we do it.
Beautiful. Now, that goes back to, everything's energy, frequency, and vibration, right? Is
Yeah,
that
it's
what?
like we're just basically we're trying to just raise that frequency. It's raising anyway. That's why all these conspiracy theories are coming true, is because everybody's realizing like, oh, whoa, this is what's really going on, because people are sharpening up. People are smart. This whole thing like, oh, people are stupid and this and that. It's really BS. They've been brainwashed, sure, but they will quickly wake up and snap out of it. And so that's what our goal is. Let's just get the information out there. People will finally snap out of it. They'll start to realize what's going on and they will raise their frequency. So it's a frequency lifestyle.
Oh, I love that. That's great. So one of the things I like to do at the end of each one of these episodes is it's a nod to the Diary of a CEO podcast. And what he does, he interviews all these awesome people. At the end of the episode, he has that guest write a question for the next guest, right? And so those are right here. And so
Ooh.
I'm going to, I want you to pick one of these. What do you think? The one in my left hand or the one in my right hand?
In your
The
right
gold
hand.
one or the silver one?
The gold one.
The
Gold.
gold one. All right. Here we go. We're going to keep the conversation rolling right here. And let me know when to stop.
That one. Yes, there. Stop.
Right here.
That one. Yeah, you got it. Jeez, that's
Boom.
the one I had in mind. All right.
Boom. All right. The question from Richard Hammond is it ever appropriate to hurt someone's feelings?
Whoa. Yes. Yes, it is.
In what way?
Because love like a mother, fight like a father.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to hurt someone's feelings to discipline them. And
Mm,
so it's just part of life. And unfortunately, we can't have a world that functions properly without discipline. And that has
mm,
to be learned. So I'd say yes.
mm. I encountered that just yesterday where we had tickets. A friend of mine, business partner, invited us to go to the suites at the soccer match. And my son agreed to go. And then like a couple hours before, he's like, I don't feel good, man. I'm not going to go. And I'm like, dude, And I said, I'm so disappointed in you, man. And then like it was amazing. He messaged me back and goes, all right, I'm gonna take a shower. I feel better now. I'm gonna come. And it's like, because I don't normally put a swift kick in his ass too much. And that one little comment where it was like, oh dude, I don't want to disappoint dad. So let's get up and let's go. So yeah, I agree. Sometimes they need a little bit of tough love. And that can, I think this Gen Z probably doesn't have enough tough love. They have a lot of babying, and anytime they get upset, they screech to the sky, which is my favorite.
Yep.
And speaking of screeching to the sky, for those of you who want to continue the conversation, we're going to talk some conspiracy stuff. I'm really curious about if there's a detox for that mRNA stuff that went down. Talk about some Kabbalah things. So if you're interested, go check us out over at rumble.com/spiritual tech right there. You can see the URL, and we'll see you over there. David, thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us, good sir.
Dude, it was the best ever. Thanks so much. And I can't wait to rock it on Spiritual Tech on Rumble. Let's go there.
Nice. The best ever. Thank you so much.